Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. The other day I was at my local Kroger and I found this. Yeah, it's just a giant can of fruit cocktail, but what made me buy it was this. The big yellow sticker. So for $1.92, I bought 2 of these cans of fruit cocktail that are usually $3.79 a piece. That's a pretty substantial savings, and it makes me feel better about what I'm about to do. As soon as I saw these, it triggered something in me. Back in the 1980s, there was a popular MRE component that was essentially just freeze-dried fruit cocktail bars. Now, originally they were designed to either just be eaten as is or to be reconstituted, but people found that reconstituted, they just weren't that great. But eating them freeze-dried was great. So I picked up these 2 cans and I figured I want to try and see if I can replicate that particular MRE item. What does it take to make those bars? I found out it was surprisingly simple. Essentially, all it is literally freeze-dried fruit cocktail. As far as I've been able to determine, they don't add anything to it. They just freeze-dry it in a block. Now, this fruit cocktail is in heavy syrup, which could impact the results that we're going to get because things with high sugar content tend to act a little funny. So I'll be curious to see how this works out. Now, I'm going to do this in a couple of batches because I don't have a lot of the molds that I will need to do all of it at once. But I figure what I can do is I can make some of these up, pre-freeze them in the molds, break them out of the molds, reuse the molds, and do more, and then just put everything in the freeze dryer all at once. But I'm going to do more than just make those freeze-dried fruit cocktail bars. I want to try to put my own spin on it. I'm going to do some just plain fruit cocktail. Then I'm going to do some others that have some additives to make them maybe a little bit more nutritious, maybe a little more tasty, or maybe just more interesting. So let's get started with that. Let's crack open this first can, scoop some out into these trays, and get started on this project. Now, if y'all see me change clothes a few times during this, I'm not doing a fashion show. It's just taking place over several days. So stick with me. Let's see what we end up with from this fruit cocktail. Set out some paper towels here because this is going to have the potential to get really messy. Now, I found this really cool set of spoons at the Amazon bin store, and I figured because of this little tip on here, it'd be perfect for scooping this kind of stuff into these smaller molds. So I want to get the fruit cocktail and the juice because I think the juice is going to be what binds it all together. Otherwise, we'll just end up with loose fruit cocktail. I want to get these full, but not too full, because if the sugars that are in the syrup expand, I don't want it to get ugly in that freeze dryer. Sometimes that happens and the sugars kind of rise to the top, fluff up really big, and then you end up with a bunch of sugary stuff stuck to the racks. All right, so there's one tray. Let's cover that up, get it set aside for the freezer. I don't think there's any need in keeping any more of this than we have to, so I'm going to go ahead and empty the rest of this can out. So as you can see, I do have some additional molds here that I'm going to fill. However, I want to wait until those others are frozen so that I can empty out the bigger molds. Because while I could probably take what's in this other can and use those other molds for it, I'm going to be putting some additives in to kind of bulk things up a little bit. So I'll need all the molds I can get. So while those are freezing up, we're going to put this away. I'm going to gather up all my other ingredients, and then we'll be back tomorrow. All right, we are back. Our first round is frozen up. It's time to demold them so that we can reuse these molds for our next batch. Everything seems to have set up nicely, so let's get these out of these molds and back onto the tray. Before we do that, we do need to set up our tray with a silicone sheet, just to make sure nothing sticks. All right, so let's get these out of here. Hopefully they'll come out in one piece. They are super sticky. Yeah, that heavy syrup is really, really sticky. All right, I'm going to put these back in the freezer until the time comes to get them in the freeze dryer. So let's get started with round 2. For this round, I want to take some of the fruit cocktail and kind of boost it up a little bit. Instead of just a fruit cocktail bar, I wanted to make kind of a fruit cocktail breakfast bar. with a little bit of extra nutrition and a little more substance. What I did was I started with heating up some non-fat milk and then adding in some quick oats. To that, I added just a little bit of honey and a little bit of peanut butter just for that extra little boost. Now keep something in mind that typically honey and peanut butter are two things that people who freeze dry tend to avoid. That's not to say that you can't put them in the freeze dryer, they just don't work really well on their own. Typically, if you dilute them in other things, they do just fine. So we're gonna give that a try. We're gonna see if we can't make something a little bit more snack worthy to go along with our fruit cocktail. Also, I'm gonna try another little recipe with just one minor additive to that. So let's go see what we got. First off, of course, we gotta open up our can. Yum yum fruit cocktail. Now for the first round, I want to use this small bar maker because I want to try something and I don't want to do a lot of it because I feel like I'm the only person in my house that's going to eat these. But what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of fruit cocktail in each of these. Don't want too many cherries in it. We'll spread those out. Spread the love. All right, now into this comes the next surprise. We're gonna go Mexican street food style and add some tahini. Get a little bit of this on there. Enough to really kick the flavor up so you know what you're getting. All right, now let's get on with the rest. So my plan is to add all of this together. I don't know if there's room in this bowl, but we're going to give it a try. All right, looks like it's going to hold it all. Barely, but it's going to hold it. Let's make sure everything is mixed well so we don't end up with any clumps that are either missing something or it's all oatmeal or all fruit cocktail. All right, let's get to scooping. If you have predictions on how this is going to turn out, now'd be a good time to drop it in the comments and then come back later and see if you were right. Now I do want to fill these, I just don't want to overfill them because I still don't know what to expect from this. Let's get a cover on this one. Get it up and out of the way. I hope these turn out because we're going to have a lot of them. All right, these are ready to go in the freezer. We'll see y'all back here tomorrow when we unmold these and get everything in the freeze dryer. This is getting to be fun. Come on back around. All right, our trays are pre-frozen and our stuff's ready to get it into the freeze dryer. We got one more step to go before we can do that. You may be able to hear the freeze dryer cranking away in the background. I turned it on because it takes 15 minutes to get it down to temperature. I didn't want to waste any time. So it's on, it's running. Hopefully it's not too distracting. But let's get these things out of the molds, set out onto these trays so we can get them into the freeze dryer and get this process going. All right, here we go. Let's open these up. Ooh, those look really good. Awesome, those turned out great. All right, let's set this up this way because I'm going to need to get another silicone liner out and get it onto the tray. Now we can demold these and get them set out. Now I could freeze dry these in these molds and it would work fine, but it might take a little longer. So I like the idea of getting them out and exposed on all sides because I think it's just more efficient that way. I don't know, maybe I'm wasting time and effort with this, but if you know more than I do about it, please chime in and let me know. But I'm thinking this is probably a much more efficient use. Add a couple of these over here so we got a little bit more space between them. And these are ready to go in the freeze dryer. Since I had an extra slot left in the freeze dryer, I whipped up a batch of homemade coffee creamer to stick in there because it's not the most efficient use of energy and space to not fill the machine up every time you use it. So I figured making some coffee creamer would be a good way to do that. Plus, I'm going to need it for a trip this weekend anyway, so it works out well. So we're going to leave this overnight to freeze dry, and then tomorrow I'm going to show you the results, and then we're going to do the fun part and taste them, see if they're any good. All right, we're back and the process is complete. I can't tell y'all how excited I am to try this. It's been kind of weird. The process of making these things went on until well into the night. And of course, my machine keeps running until I get around to opening it up so that it keeps everything fresh. So when I got up for work the next morning, I opened it up, packaged up everything, put it away, and then we had a trip this weekend. And when I got up to go to work this morning, I knew when I got home today, I was going to be trying these things out. And for whatever reason, I'm just super stoked about doing this. So let's get in here and try these things and see how they turned out. First off, we're going to start with just the regular fruit cocktail bar. Now, I grabbed the wrong packaging when I put these together. I had bought some packages in the event that I decided to sell things, and they're see-through. Normally, when I'm packing things up for long-term storage, I would make sure that there's no light that can get to it. But I don't think these things are going to last long enough for that to be a problem. But you can see how it turned out. So let's open this thing up and take a look at it. They turned out so awesome that I couldn't wait to do this part. So here we have it. This is my version of the 1980s military MRE fruit cocktail bar. Just look at that thing. Now, I never have tried one of the actual MRE versions of this, so I don't have a full scope of reference, but I have seen enough videos of people trying these and describing the flavor and the texture to kind of know what to expect with it. Overall, I think the look is there, and I don't think I strayed that far from what they did when they made the ones for the MREs, so I'm guessing this is going to be a pretty good replication. Let's give it a try, see how it tastes. Here we go. Y'all, this thing is so crazy good. The sweetness of the fruit and the syrup is so concentrated. What a perfect flavor for a sweet snack. Everything turned out exactly the way I wanted it to, and I am blown away by how good that is. But the thing is, these did come with an understanding that you could eat it like this, or you could reconstitute it. So we're going to see what happens when we just put water back in. Got a Pyrex bowl with some lukewarm water in it. I'm just going to drop that in there. I'm going to cover it up, and we're going to let it sit while we try these others. Next up, we're going to try the fruit cocktail with tahini. This strikes me as something that's going to be quite interesting and may end up being something I'm going to have to make more of. Now, this is actually 2 bars. I'm going to break that in half. There you go. There's our fruit cocktail bar with tahini. Let's give that a try. See if that spice comes through. That's pretty wild. That is an interesting burst of flavor, but I feel like I could add a lot more of that flavor if I wanted to. The tahini flavor is mild. It's more like an afterthought. It kind of just steps in at the end, but that's a great flavor combo right there. Yeah, that's definitely different. Let's see how our fruit cocktail is reconstituting in there. That's more water than I needed, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. All right, so now let's get in here and check out our fruit cocktail and oatmeal bars with peanut butter and honey. Look at how that turned out. Look how cool. Ooh, I can smell the peanut butter. It kind of smells like a peanut butter cookie. I have a feeling that's going to be a good one. All right, let's give that a taste. That has a great texture to it. I can taste the peanut butter. I can taste the honey. When I bite into the fruit, I can taste the fruit. It's amazing how all the flavors work together, but also stand apart from one another. That's pretty wild. That right there would be an amazing trail treat. Something to give you just a little bit of extra energy when you're out hiking. That turned out great. But also we need to try and experiment with this one. I feel like this is another dual purpose item. I think you could do this as is, or you could reconstitute them into oatmeal. So this one, I'm just gonna put back in the original bag, just like that. And I'm gonna add some hot water into it. Let's see what we end up with. Let's zip that up, shake it up just a little bit, let that water get in there, mush it up and help it out just a little. All right, let's let that sit for a minute while we go check out our other fruit cocktail. All right, looks like our fruit cocktail is reconstituted nicely. You can kind of look in there and see everything looks like it should. Get our official MRE spoon, get down in here and get us a bite of this. And let's see how that turned out. I like it much better as a freeze-dried bar. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's like the freeze-drying pulls all the flavor out of the fruit and then puts it back into the liquid. So you definitely have to be careful how much liquid you add into it, because otherwise you're gonna end up with just kind of watered down fruit. Get that cherry. All right, it looks like our oat bar has reconstituted into oatmeal. So let's get in here and see how this turned out. It's thin, put too much water in it, but this is an experimental process for sure. Let's get down here and get a bite of this. Let's get some oats, let's get some fruit. Look at that. Oh my goodness, that looks great. It smells so good too. That peanut butter is really just busting through. All right, going in. Bon appetit. Having hot water in this really makes it stand out like it's a breakfast food. It just really gets in there and makes everything else feel more hearty. Let's get another bite of that. Yeah, that right there works. That oat bar, I think I like it equally either way, as the bar or reconstituted as oats. There are so many things that you can do with this fruit cocktail as your base ingredient. If you have suggestions for something that I should try with this idea, please throw them at me. We may have to revisit this at some point if you guys throw enough good ideas out there. I love the idea of starting with that fruit cocktail and just making it into something better. It's crazy how good it is just as a freeze-dried bar. But then you add in the oats and the peanut butter and the honey, and it just takes it over the top. That right there was a winner. Oh, by the way, if you're liking this content, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the notification bell to be made aware of all upcoming videos, and as always, feed the algorithm by leaving a comment. Tell me what you think about these ideas, and if you have other ideas for things that I could freeze dry and make into really unique treat items. I know I haven't mentioned this in a while, but if you're not following me on Instagram, go over there, look for Dad Budget Adventures on Instagram, because I do post things over there that don't end up here on this channel. So you're much more likely to see things about what I'm doing when I'm not here. Let's get out this other tahini bar. Those things are so good. All right, so that's everything for this crazy little experiment. Come back around next week, see what kind of new, insane nonsense we're coming up with here. And until the next time, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. We'll see you around.